Hello, and welcome to Outside the Zeitgeist, an opinion podcast presented by Mook Media. Please be aware that the opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of the host platform. Outside the Zeitgeist is funded by people like you, for some reason. And now, here are your hosts, Greg and Charles.
All right, this is episode number... Hey, check this out, Greg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
That's how you're doing it?
That's how I'm doing it.
That's terrible.
It is terrible. Actually, it works. You can count up to 100
Okay,
with
the
two
next
hands.
12, on 12, you got to do something more exciting.
Fuck you, Greg. Anyways, cheers, Greg.
Cheers, Charles, and cheers to everyone on celebrating a little bit more than a year of the downfall of humanity.
Only a year, Greg?
A little bit more.
Anyways, I'm Charles, your resident misanthrope.
And I am Greg, your resident skeptic. And don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, and most importantly, dislike the video so you can express that the feeling is mutual.
And boy, have we got a lot of nightmare fuel today. So much shit has happened, unlike over the week. I guess everybody took a vacation over the weekend, causing all kinds of stupid shit. And...
No, there was no vacation. I heard that they continued on and on and on.
Well, no, I'm saying the weekend, but in the past few days, there's been a lot of shit.
Wow. I mean, the weekend only had Maxine Waters and all that other crap that was going down.
Yeah, so which brings us to the first topic, which is the Chauvin trial. And, you know, so...
Great topic, isn't it?
So as far as the trial itself goes,
Yep.
I wasn't too concerned with the outcome one way or another. Or, well, actually, I should say his guilt one way or another. I was more concerned with the fact, like, Maxine Waters saying shit, and the fact that the jury was not sequestered, so they're hearing all this shit.
Oh, wait, hold up. You forgot about Biden. Biden's saying, and I'm hoping the decision will be right. Politicians, clearly Democrats in this case, making statements that are just absurd that you would never expect to be made on any kind of trial of this importance.
Well, that's the thing. It wasn't really an important trial.
That's right. It wasn't an important trial.
And because everybody was trying to make it a racial issue, nowhere in the trial was it mentioned about race.
Nope.
Not the prosecution, not the defense. And then, what's it called? And then I heard...
There was all the appeal to emotions.
Yeah, well, I heard... I didn't verify it, but one story I heard, what wouldn't surprise me is that one of the witnesses... for Chauvin had goat's blood painted on their door. It wouldn't surprise me, but like it's that whole thing. Politicians saying shit, or people just in general. Nobody wants to be the judge or jury. Everybody just wants to be the executioner. And I see this because I hang out in all the circles online, and I see the same fucking bullshit.
You are
no matter.
troll.
Well, yeah, you know, but I see the same bullshit from everybody. Is that everybody just wants to find a reason to be the executioner. Oh, this person bad? Yeah. No one wants to sit and let the trial play out and hear the evidence. And yeah, there's corruption that happens. I mean, let's not ignore the fact that the prosecution, which should have been the state, the DA, you know, the prosecutor and whatnot, instead hired a really expensive attorney, apparently.
Really?
That's what I
thought that was the state's own lawyers doing the entire prosecution.
Yeah, from what I understand, now I didn't follow the exact details of the case, but from what I understand, this is I'm getting all of this information from LawTube basically, which is the legal area of YouTube.
It's a great area of YouTube.
Which is I don't understand that. It's like, oh, you have Black Twitter and you have Fem Twitter. It's fucking Twitter.
It's just Twitter. People. Calm down. It is just Twitter. There is no version of Twitter that allows you to say that this group and that group are totally separate Twitters.
Yeah.
They're all Twitter. It's just you're following that version of Twitter.
Yeah, it's the people you're following and you're, you know, the circle
You
you've
know, that
created.
variety of people is the only people apparently you follow. Don't worry about it.
I mean, right after the trial, someone was saying, oh, it's a great day. And I was like, oh, really? Why is that? And it was like, Chauvin was found guilty on all 3 counts.
So,
And I'm just like, well, let me finish this off and I'll let you get to what you're saying. I'm just like, I don't really have an opinion on whether or not he's guilty. But what I am concerned with is that people are fighting over whether a small fish gets eaten in a large lake full of sharks. It's not going to change anything because the police department denounced him. The politicians are just using it to fucking get their fucking what's it called? Their talking points and all that shit. This trial is not something that's going to change anything because people are paying attention to the trial.
So, yeah, I found a couple things very concerning about the trial in general. One, first and foremost, is that there was enough evidence presented, as well as terrible witnesses brought up by the prosecution, that the defense had amazing. I forget the terminology, but when they got to
Cross-examination.
great cross-examinations. And I'm not saying that the prosecution didn't have a good blow here or there. And I personally felt that if anything was going to happen, he might get manslaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you watch the video and you listen to everything that was said, something may have happened, undeterminable, that led to possibly Chauvin killing
Right.
Floyd. But
But the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt.
it's beyond reasonable doubt in my mind that he could have been put guilty on any of those charges, with the exception of possibly manslaughter.
And I did see the judge's order to the jury because when they're getting ready to make their verdict, the judge sends orders, and from what I could tell, it was actually a lot less in there than most judges give to their juries. So that was interesting as well. I mean, there's just so many things around this case that it's just
And
yeah.
there's a lot going on. Another interesting thing to me is that I think I only heard 4 jurors utter opinions on this.
Mm-hmm.
Were there only 4 jurors? Because I wasn't aware of how many jurors there
It's
are.
supposed to be 12, I believe.
Yeah, because I only heard the judge. Now, when I was in court for as a juror for jury duty, and we were sitting on a trial of this guy that apparently had fled the scene from killing a person, or at least shooting a number
Okay.
of people. He had busted into an illegal gambling ring in a good old town, a little bit north from here. You might call it New something. But anyways, he had gone into this illegal gambling ring, and they had shot up the place to steal the money.
Right.
Okay, and there was enough evidence presented to me that I thought, okay, might be him.
Right.
Okay, it probably is him. And eventually, we were able to convince everybody to go guilty on most of the charges, but not guilty on some of the charges.
Right.
Which I thought makes sense from what we were doing. But there were like 20 of us. Okay, and this was a very small thing by comparison to this, being done for Derek Chauvin. Okay, Derek
Yeah.
Chauvin being a cop, this being a small-time criminal, basically. I was very surprised at how many actual jurors were sitting there for something as big as this.
Yeah, and you had stuff like this and people reaction and you had George Floyd. They actually calling a place George Floyd Square now. I have a picture of it. I'll show it to everybody right there. There you go. There's a picture of George Floyd Square. Because
It's a little black and white.
well, I mean that's because like white, as I understand it, if you're white, you're not allowed to do things there. It's certain things there. So
I see.
yeah. So it's all a big dumpster fire having a baby.
So, but I am hopeful because I see this entire thing as a miscarriage of justice in an extreme degree because the jurors came to such a quick decision on everything.
Yeah.
So
now-
it could only have been completely guilty or completely not guilty.
I mean, here's a couple interesting fun facts, and I got this from different places. One of them is Kim Iverson. She was doing a report where she was looking at the number. A cop, is more likely to go to jail. Now, I'm not talking about innocence or guilt here. It's just that a cop is more likely to go to jail if the person that they killed is black than if the person is white.
Ah,
Twice as likely.
regardless of the situation.
Well, that's just yeah. I mean, keep in mind single statistics are for simple people.
Sure.
But this I'm saying this as a starting point of where to look into things. Now, here's another statistic. In 2019, guess how many unarmed black people were killed?
I believe it was some number. I think it was like 11 or 12.
27.
See, I knew it was under 30.
Yeah, I mean, people were polling. I think it's hundreds and thousands and whatnot.
Well, that's that classic.
Well,
I
it's
don't know
what gets
refer to.
what's
But
gets promoted most in the
what I'm
media.
going to say is, so there was a poll done by one of the number of these research places and everything. One of these polls that had asked, they just went around asking people questions, and more than half of all Democrats that were polled believed that the number was over 1,000
Yeah.
people were killed, and only 30% of Republicans polled believed the same. So I don't know if that's because of the fact that possibly Republicans are not watching as much of the news media as Democrats are, but I do find that, to me at least, more rational people are less likely to let other people make their decisions for them, and less rational people come to decisions based upon what other people believe.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole believe the science bullshit. But what's it called?
Believe
Yeah.
the science. I'm working on a picture that I'm calling "Believe the Science."
Oh, okay. You remembered your shit? I forgot to load that today. I'll figure it out. What's it called? So yeah, there was a couple more incidents that happened, and the first one, everybody,
All the buildings y'all are crying about for burning down, them buildings got life insurance, everything gonna be back.
and then they found out the person that was killed was white, and so they all went home.
Terrible, terrible, terrible. But not on the other two shootings.
Well, yeah. So we actually have the video for the other one. Let's pull it up here, and we'll get to wear our earphones.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which hopefully will produce sound for us because I haven't checked my sound settings, but
Well, if it doesn't produce sound for me, I'm blaming you.
yeah, that's fine. So here we go. This is the actual cam footage. Now, the important thing to keep in mind from this is that some of the reporters edited out the 911 audio.
I want to talk about that after the video.
All right, yeah.
I don't seem to be hearing anything.
I don't
although
hear
there may
any-
not be sound.
Yeah, I'll check the sound really quick. Oh, there's no sound coming out.
It's a very boring drive.
Yeah.
I can't even see the scenery.
Let's open the volume meter here. All right, so let's. There we go.
There's sound.
White noise.
Oh,
White
wanna go
noise.
ahead?
Driving.
You can.
We're driving.
And he needed a drink.
We're driving. Oh, they stop. Still stop. Oh, maybe they stop.
This is after the fact. Okay, here we go.
There we go. Exciting stuff. Possibly.
They still have the
Arriving at
shifter on
3170
the
Legion Lane.
steering wheel.
Hey! What's going on? Hey, what's going on? Hey! 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 Get down! Get down! Get down! Get down!
Okay, all right. So, obviously, if you didn't know that somebody was going to get shot, then that's fucking on you. But anyways,
What's going on? Hey!
part
Hey!
right here.
Hey!
This
Hey!
woman.
Get down! Get down! Get down!
You see what he does right there?
Yep.
Okay, so you have all this commotion going on. Hard to tell what's going on. See over here. Now, we only see from the camera. We can't see what's above the camera. But you can definitely tell that this chick in the jeans is going after Pinky
Well,
over there.
there was a flash of the.
Yeah, you can see a flash.
If you go back and you pause.
What's going on? Hey! 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 Get down! Get down! Get
Stop. Play. Stop. Look at that. Look at that.
This right here.
No. Well, no. The motion.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely. I mean, she's definitely going after her.
Out!
Oh,
Yep,
you
there
saw
it
it in
was.
her hand. Yep.
Get
Right.
down!
And there it is in the hand again.
Yep. I paused it too late. Oh, you can actually see it right here.
Yep.
So you can see the knife right there.
No!
There
And
goes
look,
the phone.
there's the knife right there.
You ain't shoot my fucking knife! You shot my knife! Are you fucking serious?
Oh wait, that's a knife. Move on.
Are you stupid?
This man isn't supposed to be here.
Back up.
Is she shot?
She had a knife. She just went at her.
She's a fucking kid, man. Baby shot. Damn, are you stupid? A fucking kid? Hold on. I told you.
So the other two cops.
Oh,
They were,
hold on.
Oh, y'all motherfuckers.
I just saw something interesting.
here?
No. Just pause. Pause.
Guy with his hands up.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all motherfuckers.
So,
Get mad on my chair.
God, this is taking me back to my childhood.
I'm telling you now. I shouldn't even pay you. You come on fucking my house.
All right, what do you need me to do?
There's a
What do you
knife
need me
right
to do?
Right? The
What do you
knife
need me to
that
do?
wasn't there according to a lot of the videos. Yeah, see the knife. Yeah. It's a,
All right, what do you need? You need me to pull her down? This way. We're out this way. All right.
All right, I think that's enough of that. But you know, it's right there. I mean, it's another justified shooting. You know, I can't fault the officer.
I mean, I'm not going to say justified or not justified, but if someone is attacking someone with a knife and I have a means of stopping them, I can't see myself not doing something.
Yeah, I mean, but when people trying to, and then you had what's that fucking LeBron James?
Oh my god. Disgusting. Why would you do something like that?
It's all about people just.
It's all about the Chinese overlords.
You know, if the song came out today and was a little more edgier, it would be something like, "Put your babies on a spike, give all your crops the blight. The politicians say that it's okay. Hip hip hooray, it's Don't Ask Questions Day."
Okay.
It's
So-
all fucking horseshit, you know?
So interesting to me is I've noticed a trend in the last year, and I'm coming up with a hypothesis about all of this,
Right.
which is that because now we've gotten to the point where everything is so polarizing, and what with Project Veritas giving that great video evidence of what CNN is trying to do, right? And CNN is just another one of the guys that are promoting all this bullshit. You got all the other ones, ABC, MSNBC, all those guys and everything, CBS. So all of them are really pushing this narrative of the white cop killing black people and all that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, not just white
Look-
cop. And it's because you have the Rittenhouse situation.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
So, my hypothesis is that we are now at the point where the media is going to make, because they don't have Trump to do anything against. Okay, they've been trying to find some sort of type of story.
Well, now it's your neighbor.
What was it?
Now it's your neighbor.
No, it's even worse than that. Every story, my prediction. I'm making a prediction right now. Put it in the books.
You going out on that limb that I like to go out on?
I'm going off on some limb.
Okay.
For the next month, 2 months, 3 months, let's say next 4 months, the most covered stories will always be a shooting. Okay? And I say that because in the last few days, I've seen more shootings covered by the news than they will ever cover in any way, shape, or form. Even though we have shootings left and right happening every single day, and we have for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 decades probably. And it's only now that we're seeing it, and it's because of the fact that there is nothing more fearful right now than trying to make it seem like your local police, which have millions of interaction in a given year, that go nowhere near gun violence or anything like that. They're all safe. They're all very productive, I would say, in somewhat fashion. Millions of interactions. We're trying to demonize the police even further. It's the next big foe that we got to take down.
Yeah,
ourselves.
and then you hear all these calls for defund the police. Oh yeah, defund the police. Then people can hire Lone Star Securities, and this way, you'll just have to hire some runner to.
You're talking about the rich and the elite, like AOC.
Yeah.
And the Squad, who are all hiring their own private police.
Yeah, like Lone Star Securities, and then you'll just have to hire a runner to, free the person who doesn't want to work at Evo anymore, so he can go over to work for Renraku. That's another Shadowrun reference, by the way.
I figured.
But but the media, like the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, where somebody hacked into the thing and doxed all the information of all the anonymous donors for the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, and that's why I say it's not specifically the police. Even the police is like the low-hanging fruit on the greater narrative.
I mean, but shootings in general are the next big crisis that the media is going to be tackling.
Well, yeah, but Kyle Rittenhouse. You watch the videos. Obviously, a justified shooting. I mean, if somebody's trying to grab your gun from you while somebody else is trying to beat you over the head with a
I can
skateboard,
only assume they're going to use the gun against me.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, but the thing is you don't know in the heat of the moment, so you have to.
That's what I said. I can only assume.
Right.
If
But
someone's trying to take my means of protecting myself, the only reason that someone wants to disarm me of my weapon is so that way they have power over me, and then at that point I don't know if that power is simply to then use it against me or if they simply just wanted to disarm me.
yeah, I
don't
mean,
know
well,
why.
that's always been a narrative is they want you to die. I mean, you even see that in the laws and whatnot, right? With the whole duty to retreat bullshit.
Yeah,
but
that's such bullshit.
But so a fireman gets a visit by the reporters because his information is put out there, and then this policeman gets fired.
This is another continuation of the people visiting your homes type of bullshit that we covered last week with AOC and the California State Police,
Yeah.
Highway Police, or whatever, visiting that guy's home.
Yeah,
This is-
for a response to his tweet, not even his tweet.
Yeah, it's. We're
But keep in-
we're going crazy.
But keep it in the spirit of people looking at your social media.
Oh yes.
Popo has a whole new meaning now. It's now the postal police because the post office is monitoring everybody's social media.
Yes. Here I thought the postal service was for delivering mail and packages, but apparently they're in the new CIA.
Yeah. I mean, are they going to have another huge server like the NHS that uses almost probably now at least 2 million gallons of potable water every day?
I don't know. Are they secretly reading my mail and any of these votes that we send out and other things?
See, that's the thing, because, I used to contract for Comcast many years ago, and part of the reason why I was doing, why I even had a job was because certain people weren't getting their mail for one reason or another. Sometimes it's like postman or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, does this mean going postal means spying on everyone now?
I don't know if you remember this, but last year there was an entire thing of documents that was trying. I think one Fox was sending to another Fox or something like that.
Okay.
And this documents was supposed to have a lot of information with regards to the whole election and everything.
Right.
And somewhere in between when they sent it and to where it was going, it went missing. Now, it wasn't the USPS that was responsible for that. It was
Yeah.
FedEx, I believe. But if the USPS is spying, what is FedEx and UPS and DHL and
Yeah,
all
I mean,
these?
that's one thing, we'll definitely talk about when we get to our main topic of the day.
It's crazy stuff.
But, I don't remember hearing that so much.
You look into it, man. It was a very interesting story I saw.
Another thing many people probably didn't hear a whole lot was they had a drive-by shooting killing some National Guards member while he was in his vehicle.
Did they mention the ethnicity of the person?
I don't recall, but I was in the military myself, and we kind of made fun of the National Guard people, but I gotta say I feel bad for them, all the bullshit that they've had to go through, from having to be shipped off overseas for bullshit when that's not even what they signed up for. The bullshit at the Citadel, and now people killing them in drive-bys. I mean, these are people thinking they're gonna fucking rebuild people's houses after a flood.
Now, speaking of interesting things regarding the Citadel, have you heard about the Oklahoma Citadel, which was completely invaded by BLM? They came in, they completely, basically took over the room and started shouting at the politicians there, and then they apparently left afterwards. But the media is not talking about that Capitol riot and calling them insurrectionists. And another interesting thing is that after the conviction of Chauvin, the Department of Justice is launching an investigation into whether the Minneapolis Police Department, to determine whether they engage in a pattern or practice of unlawful or unconstitutional policing. And since last year, over 700 plus resignations of the Minneapolis Police Department have occurred.
Yeah.
Nobody is jumping to get into these positions of policing.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like I was talking about a while ago with the whole stupid idea of taxis. Police how do you tell a good cop from a bad cop? You can't. They both wear the same uniform, but you get it on both. That guy
gave me a bad look. I don't like him.
Yeah, but they get it on both sides now because you have one group of people saying defund the police, and then the other group of people saying the taxes are theft, and then you wonder why you have like fucking quotas and all this horse shit.
Sure, those aren't the same people.
What's what I'm saying? It's different people, but they're getting it from different sides.
Sure.
But
what's your next interesting thing?
So, Greg, you used to work for Amazon, right?
Very briefly, I worked there for 5 weeks. It was, in my opinion, one of the most relaxing yet hectic work schedules I ever had, because I worked 3 days straight at 12 hours a day by choice. Okay, no one told me I had to work those hours. I wanted to work those hours because it also gave me 4 days straight of being off.
I used to work at Amazon too, which was also, I think I had a 3 days on, 4 days off shift. My experience was a little bit different just because I worked in a more technical field. And technically I was contracted through them, but
I guess you weren't a packaging slave.
No, well, this is also in the height of the period when I was crazy off my fucking rocker, but yeah, there were some interesting things that went on there, but now I'm glad I don't work for them anymore because if you work for Amazon, you better be able to give them access to all your biometric data, otherwise you're gone, out.
Wonderful.
Now, from what I understand, this is only from the drivers, but yeah.
It's interesting. I don't think I'd hand over my biometric data to any company I work for.
I had jobs try that a long time ago. I'm like, no.
They have no right to my biometric data.
Yeah, I mean, about a decade ago, I had some place insisting that I had to get checkups by their doctors. And I said, you can insist all you want. It's not going to happen.
When someone starts telling me their doctors have to start checking me over, I start to believe, why the fuck does it have to be your doctors? Are you taking my data and using it for nefarious purposes or figuring out how to better market product to me?
Yeah, and which leads us into stuff with the Happy virus and the Doomspell. You got anything else not related to that before?
Yes. Texas, under Biden's administration, one of the Texas facilities has shut down. Specifically, one of the migrant holding facilities has shut down. They have shut it down from not overcapacity, which they are already over capacity of, unbearable conditions. And that only makes me wonder, if they shut it down from unbearable conditions, where are all those migrants being held now? Are they being held in a better or worse area?
No, it's like pandemic.
Oh, yes!
The outbreak happens here, so it all spreads out.
In the wrong area, We add a cube to every space,
And
and we
if-
leave the cubes there too.
And if those other areas all have outbreaks too,
They explode as well. We get exploding outbreaks, and that causes us to lose the game. Please, if you haven't played Pandemic, the board game, I highly recommend it.
don't
One of-
alpha game it though.
No.
But yeah, when you said Biden, I mean, when I thought we were expecting.
I was called upon to serve the greater interest of humanity. Personal power was never my goal.
Sounds just like Biden. If he was a good few years younger.
Now, no reports of the happy virus there in these facilities. I haven't heard anything about that. Have you?
I've heard tons that there's a lot of COVID in all these happy facilities,
Hmm.
and the fact that rape is very rampant there. And
By the guardsmen, I would expect.
no, I think it's the migrants raping the migrants,
No.
which is just as bad.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the fact that they're hot dogs in a little foil wrapper, it's good analogy.
Now
I mean,
there is one thing with the whole like migrants and everything, because this whole narrative of people in cages is put out now, right? It's and that's something I always kind of looked at. I'm like, you're really, if you're going off that, you're really kind of stupid, because it's a whole thing that what is it? Iron bars do not a prison make, right? Cage wall is cheap. I mean, if you have here's the thing, and here's why actually.
Well, they didn't use actual cage on you. Have you not seen the
Well-
inside to those?
I'm talking about like from back a while ago.
Okay.
Now I haven't looked at it recently, but and this is what I'm going off of. This is going because I saw pictures of inside and it was just cage wall. Okay, and if you have this large open area, you can either spend a shitload of money building walls for people that you're supposedly housing temporarily.
Excuse
Building walls for people you're supposedly housing temporarily, which means you also need to spend air conditioning, and not a lot of people want to spend a whole bunch of money. So cage wall is actually a simple solution because it lets air flow through and so forth.
That's not what they were doing.
Well, I mean, but my idea, the point that I'm trying to get at is, again, iron bars do not a prison make. Look, don't just using cage wall for something and say it's a cage, right? Because there are practical reasons why you would want to use that in that situation. Now, when you go overboard,
Okay.
and
So you're saying the cage that we're currently sitting within right now is a bad cage?
well, then that is the other thing too, right? Like, if it is a cage, right, and well, aren't these people like, now I'm not saying right or wrong, I'm just saying according to the law, aren't these people supposed to be thrown into like a jail or something like that? So then what's the difference between a cage and a jail?
The reason why someone gets put into it.
Well, yeah, but I'm
The
saying,
function of what it does is exactly the same.
right, that's
The
what I'm
reason
saying.
as to why they're put into it is what makes it different.
Right, but that's what I'm talking about. If the function is supposed to be the same as something else, what is the aesthetics? Yeah, the aesthetics.
It's all optics, man.
Well, yeah, right.
Speaking of cages and migrants and all that wonderful stuff, according to many people now, climate change is racism.
Oh,
So, by virtue of climate change being racism, and by virtue of the fact that these migrants are coming here, obviously because of climate change,
yeah. I mean, it has
America-
nothing to do with all the
America, by being a country of racists, is forcing migrants to come to the country so they can be bigoted against and have
Yeah.
racist comments thrown at them.
I'm sure it has nothing to do
It's a
with all
circular.
the
It's a circular loop. Don't question the logic.
with all the coups and puppet governments and the Monroe Doctrine. And all
Right?
Yeah,
It's-
yeah, nothing to do
everything's
with that.
racism.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why they keep changing what global warming, climate change, climate crisis means. So that way,
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of people moving, I hear Florida's a nice place to vacate if you're, was it a Michigan governor?
absolutely. Absolutely. Especially if you've just told your citizens, don't go to Florida. It's a terrible place. They got the vid.
They got the vid. Oh, that's great. I heard that. I was just.
This is another example of a Democrat
I love it.
who says, do this, but don't do this,
And then
while
goes-
they're doing this.
It's the same thing like, oh, we would never do this, and then goes and does this.
Yeah,
I'm loving it.
I
I'm
still
loving
find
it.
the most egregious example was the, what was it, the mayor who said, we're no longer going to do restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
and the day before the restaurants are gone to shut down, goes out and has food at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Why? Because they were about to be shut down, and I gotta enjoy my cake and eat it. Thank you very much.
Oh, man. And people just go along with it. Yep. Okay. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah.
I love it. I mean, that's so Donald Trump right there, what she did.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah, and but the vid, it's so bad and everything, and now because of the whole J&J thing, people are more afraid of getting the doom spell just because of the J&J thing.
Well, even funnier is that after they've gotten the vid vaccine,
The doom spell.
after they've gotten the doom spell, they're even more fearful of going on vacations or touristing or anything of that because they're afraid, oh no, I've got the virus effect, the doom spell, and I'll get the virus again.
Oh my God.
Do these people listen to themselves? Is the
It's
media
so hilarious. I'm so looking forward to everybody just killing each other off and just like watching it all.
What did I tell you, man? This next 4 years are going to be amongst the most entertaining as possible.
Oh yeah.
The last
Keep
4
it coming,
years,
humanity. Keep it
the
coming.
last 4 years were just outstandingly entertaining.
It was. It
was
was.
so entertained. There was not a moment that I had any downtime to not be entertained. With all of the biased media narratives from everybody coming at me and everything it was great.
And I still love the whole, oh, why don't you trust the science? Somebody asked you that, okay, draw me the standard model. Or tell me what the Krebs cycle is. What's the difference between a saturated fat and an unsaturated fat? What are the four fundamental ask them any of these questions and they'll just be like,
ask them what the 3 branches of government are. Please.
give me at least 4 states of matter. At least 4.
What is the state of matter? Is that New Jersey? Does New Jersey matter? Is it New York? It must be California. Can't be Texas.
We still having reports of people getting the doom spell, like all of a sudden have COVID now.
It's
Now-
only 6,000 plus people that have been reported to have been reinfected.
So
So they say.
yeah, so here's the interesting thing about that, right? Because most of the tests for antibodies, and if some of them are designed to actually create antibodies, but
They're
and there's a whole
Finish.
thing. There's a whole thing of how these work and why I said this is overglorified. At least the Pfizer and Moderna ones are overglorified CRISPR, and why it's a doom spell.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a vaccine, when it enters the body, it latches onto the cells, and it opens up into the cells, and all the genetic information just is there, and molecules are dumb. They just attach to whatever meshes with them. So that's how the virus reproduces. When you have this overglorified CRISPR stuff, that's just like, oh, well, we'll only reproduce, we'll only have like certain parts of it. Well, that stuff gets drawn into the DNA, the actual DNA of the cell. And what happens there is,
I got something funny to talk about after this.
what happens, again, this is why it's like, these are all highly experimental, but and I'm going off of statistics here. What happens there is, well, now your cell recognizes the viral genetic information as part of its information, so it starts making the protein markers on its cell wall. It says, "Hey, I'm a virus," even though it's not a virus. So what do you have after a few months?
A hallucination?
No, you have manually induced lupus.
Ah. So, the funny thing with all of this, our friend, our slightly neurotic, crazy friend,
Which one is plenty? No.
it's only one, you know who he is.
yeah.
We were playing this new trading card game,
What, blood and flesh, or flesh and blood, or
Flesh and Blood, Blood and Guts, Blood and Flesh, Flesh and Guts. It's the name is so hard.
snails
to
and
remember.
entrails?
It's just all the great acronyms you get from it.
Mm-hmm.
You can get FAB, you can get BAG, you get fag. You get so many great acronyms out of all these things. But moving on, he was telling me there were cases of people who got the vaccine, the doom spell, and they got cured of cancer. And it actually happened. He's trying to tell me that I didn't believe that could happen.
Well, that goes
and I find
into-
that highly suspicious that it might have happened, and makes me wonder even more so, what the fuck are they injecting into people with this jab?
Right. That's what I was saying about.
No, I get it. And that's why
Yeah.
I'm saying this, because if this is a real thing that happened where someone is actually cured of cancer because of being injected with the jab, what the fuck have they been experimenting on to create this crazy jab that they say is just to combat this? Because not only that, but people who have been tested are now coming up falsely positive for HIV.
I was thinking something, because remember how I told you there's only one time I got sick that I can remember? That was in the end of 2019.
Really?
Yeah, and I wasn't really sick. I just had a sore throat for a few days. It kind of felt like I had
It
something.
could have been the vid.
Yeah, because it was actually going around since September
Of last year? No, 2 years ago.
of 2019. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was just I got reminded of it, but
Still haven't found patient zero.
yeah, the bat or the Batman. But so, and here's another thing, right? So there are reports from women that have gotten a doom spell that
I thought they weren't supposed to.
women.
Yeah,
Well, no, if they were
Pregnant
pregnant women, but like not just regular women that have gotten a doom spell that their menstrual cycles have that are off. There's something going wrong with their menstrual cycles. Okay, plausible. Here's what I don't understand. There are women saying that they have come in contact with women that have gotten a doom spell whose menstrual cycles are also off. Don't see how that one works. I also don't see how some women are saying that they've had miscarriages after being in contact with women that have the doom spell. Those two things right there seem more of like trying to attach a
There's
cause.
two things that I come up with as plausible explanations. First and foremost, women are liars. I don't mean that literally. Just-
They're like everybody else, so.
Yeah. But there are people that lie about these things. Especially, we've seen some wonderful news reporting on people who were seated for positions in power who lied about their interactions with this individual, who shall not be named. And they lied, and people do it just to be. They want 5 minutes of fame. Everybody wants their fucking 5 minutes of fame. They can't understand.
Well, there's a little bit more to it than that, because
That's like I said. That's one of my.
yeah, because
The other one is that it's actually happening, which is even more frightening.
well, no. But in regards to the first thing that you were saying is because, and so here's an example. I adopted some ferrets, rescued some ferrets. First one I rescued, she was alone. Yeah, my wife and I were like, I think it's my girlfriend, but we were like, well, let's get her a friend. So we get her a friend and get another ferret from a rescue. And there would be every once in a while, we would hear her squeaking. And so her name was Daisy, his name was Bruiser. We would hear her squeaking like they're fighting. And when we found them, we would see her on her back with Bruiser kind of over her. So we would grab Bruiser, thinking that, he was attacking her or whatever. It could be like mating or whatever, because that's how ferrets mate. They actually mate through like rape, but
As some number of animals do.
yeah. So so we would try to discipline Bruiser, and Bruiser was a sweetheart. Everybody loved him, which was kind of like it didn't make sense. But one day I hear the squeaking, so I go and I look to where they're hiding, because they would hide on their couch. I looked at the cushions, and there's Daisy on her back, twitching all around, squeaking up a storm, and Bruiser standing like a good foot away, just looking at her. And I was like, oh, now I get it. So she was faking the whole time.
That's funny.
So, people do stuff like that as well. But going back to the things with the doom spell, they're also, so doctors are recommending that nursing mothers take it, and some mothers have been reporting that their breast milk has changed color, either become blue or green. Now that can happen based
Blue
on
or green? Oh my god, blue milk?
Well-
Star Wars is real?
that can actually happen. It can get a bluish hue or greenish hue based on what like the woman's health and the like what they've eaten. There's actually some women that will like put their breast milk in the food of older children just so they can get the antibodies. Whatever, but some women are reporting that they stop producing breast milk.
This goes back to that crazy conspiracy theory that the vid jab is to stop people from having children.
Why would you say such things, Greg?
Because the wonderful Dr. Bill, not doctor, because Bill Gates isn't a doctor.
No, he's a
He's
fucking.
just a business guy.
He's a moron, is what he is.
He's advocated for controlling the population
I mean,
many times.
I don't know about you, but I personally like the fact that Bill Gates has paid off like all the reporters. He donates to reporting causes, and then he comes up with these ideas and starts a company based off that idea, and then he comes out on the news and says, "Hey, you know what? The government should start looking at the private sector to do this thing." Not even mentioning that he just started a business to do that thing.
Did you hear about the time he put a lot of money into trying to make a school district better and ended up failing?
I might have heard that, but I don't think I heard that was him.
I heard a story where the Bill Gates or the Gates Foundation or something like that put a ton of money into trying to better a school district, and it never went anywhere.
Yeah, Bill Gates is a fucking moron. I every time I listen to him, I'm just like, this guy doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground.
It's a good program. Maybe. He created a very successful empire.
Yeah, I think he got a lot of his money from inheritance or some shit like that. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, he wanted to build a better school system. He wants to build a better... He's probably one of the people that wants to build a new town in Nevada. You know, those corporate towns.
Well, those used to be a huge thing. Many decades ago. You know, the entire town was basically working at the factory and such.
Yeah, I mean, you have... It's actually not the first time that something like that has happened. You know, I mean, look at Google a couple years ago.
Well, no, they're basically a town.
And part of that's because all the people that work for them went homeless, and so the interesting thing was in 2019 the number of full-time homeless people that were employed full-time went up. It wasn't because the homeless people were getting jobs; it was because people that were full-time employed were losing their homes. So there was this whole septic crisis around the Google building in California.
We're talking about California had a homeless crisis created by people who were employed by Google?
Yeah, people that were employed by Google, they would live in their fucking cars and get, what's it called, and they just camp out in the parking lot, and the township was trying to take care of it because it was a huge septic crisis, a sewage crisis. Rather.
This just makes me think of the other thing I heard about California, the Loot for Justice thing. I mean, if I'm homeless already and I'm employed, why not knock off a wonderful Radio Shack or some other retail business which can afford to be broken into?
You know who they'll never loot? They'll never loot any of the Federal Reserve buildings. They'll never loot.
Oh, that's true.
They'll never loot.
For more than one reason.
Yeah. They'll never loot any of the military and industrial complex buildings. They'll never loot any of the banks. You know, the major banks. They may go over to small banks because they don't have a whole. You know, it's all about the low hanging fruit. That's what modern day protesting is about. It's all about the low hanging fruit.
No, it's just because the high hanging fruit is controlling the low hanging fruit into destroying the low hanging fruit.
Oh yeah, it's the slottle thing I said about the last time. That's someone lower on the list.
You have anything else?
That's it.
Why don't we move into the topic of the day?
Our town that we're going to build in Nevada.
Sure. Founded on our own ideals that we're going to build from scratch.
So, where do you want to start?
Well, let's explain what the topic is first. So,
Sure.
I wanted to do an exercise today of crafting a civilization.
He's crafty. He gets around.
Oh, yeah. Just basically establishing what I think, with Charles here, are fair rules for how society should live, basically. Okay. My first thing is just like the Constitution, freedom of speech. And
So yeah, that would be the part that I would start also as fundamental rights.
yes, fundamental rights. I believe the freedom of speech is amongst the most paramount of all things that I want in any society I live.
Well, for me, the well, there's two things.
Speech and expression, possibly.
Two things I would want to point out. First, I think there needs to be a separation between human rights and citizen rights because there's a difference. I mean, we see that with what's going on with Julian Assange, right?
Sure.
And the other thing too, my first and foremost fundamental right would be based on what I was talking about last episode with the right to decide whether or not you want to exist or not, because that to me is the core fundamental right of a sentient being. If you can decide, hey, I want to wake up and see tomorrow, or hey, I don't want to wake up and see tomorrow.
So I really don't care if someone wants to off themselves.
Yeah.
I'd be a little disappointed, but I can't deny the fact that when I'm playing video games and I decide that I have come to a point of no return in a run of a game I'm playing, then I will just quit the run and start over.
Yeah.
Although, in real life, you don't restart over. Or at least, we don't know if you start over.
Yeah, we don't know if you start over. But it's a whole thing of why should I care? You know, I mean, I realize somebody's going to have to clean up the body and whatnot, but
As long as you're not...
It's the whole, it's your life, it's your body, it's your choice.
If you're not harming me, physically... Okay,
or anybody else.
It's the big distinction. Distinction. There's a big distinction I find I don't see a lot of people making. I think you can do anything as long as it doesn't harm physically another individual.
Right.
Okay? I can't say mentally because I don't know how other people think
and it's
how
subjective.
other things will affect you. And a lot of people may claim to believe that by someone saying something or doing something, it mentally anguishes that individual in some unfathomable way that is beyond reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's a highly subjective thing.
It's
and
very, very...
And the whole thing with that, too, is like the whole thing of... It's the same decry of gay marriage as an assault on Christian rights, right?
Now, if you have that in society where someone can off themselves, they can't do it in such a way, I think, that is public.
Depends, because then you're getting into the whole right of protest, right? Because I assume that we would want that as another fundamental right.
So it's part of freedom of speech.
Right, so...
Provided that they are not being violent against another person physically.
Right, so like having somebody off themselves in public, you know, as to blanket say, no, you can't do that when it can cross over to a protest or a speech.
I don't care if they do it in private. Publicly, I would object to that because it doesn't seem like it should be something that's done in the public. The only reason to do it in the public is if you're trying to make a particular statement.
Right. What I'm saying is when you have the crossover with the freedom of speech.
Yes, but
because
where I would say definitively there's a line.
Because the whole, if you have, I mean, what if that? Let's ask a question. What if that is the only legitimate way you have to get any kind of redress on legitimate grievances?
Okay, you're not going to be the one getting the redress. It's going to be the people who you believe are suffering are going
right.
to get the redress.
Right, but even still, I mean, a part of that would be speech of like, hey, these people, you know, it's the whole like the hunger, the fasting, right? You know, Gandhi and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's slow suicide if you don't ever eat. Oh, I'm making Greg think. Holy shit.
Once again, that's a statement.
Yeah, it's a statement. But what if you die from the fasting? That's suicide, and it's also it's also a speech.
I think I'm really still against something like that.
Okay.
I really wouldn't want something like. Now I'm going to say this, regardless of what I say with regards to this particular portion, there will still be criminals in our society that would do it anyways. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that is something that because you don't know what someone.
I committed the crime of of killing myself in public. Quick, arrest me.
So I'm just saying, I'm against it being something that we would say that you have the right to do. Okay, and when I say the right to do, I'm saying, and I feel this is strongly how many portions of the Constitution should be read. Is the government can't put controls on these things. They cannot write laws or create things that allow us to dictate how you do these things.
Right,
so
yeah.
You're just allowed to do them without regard because the government is not allowed. The government doesn't have the authority to control you for this aspect.
Well, in theory, I mean, because there is so you do enter that discussion between natural rights based on your abilities and then so positive rights, right?
Sure.
But and then you have positive and negative rights and so forth. So I mean, I think we can pretty much agree that a basic human right would basic human rights would include the true expression of what one truly believes. That's what
Unless
speech
it
is.
harms another.
Yeah, that's what speech the right of speech is. It's expression of what one truly believes and what one finds to be true, and
But
so forth.
freedom of speech, it's been explained to me, freedom of speech versus freedom of expression.
Oh, the printing's done finally.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, that's what you get for fucking showing up early, Greg.
Yeah, okay. So I believe in the UK they have freedom of expression, not freedom of speech.
Right.
Okay, freedom of expression is not necessarily speech. Speech is more specific. Expression could include shooting people. Expression could include attacking people.
Yeah.
So I believe the reason that it's explicitly freedom of speech is because speech could be more narrowly defined as religion, art, things of those natures.
Well, before I go on, I'm going to say keep that in mind for what I have planned for episode 16.
Will do.
Because that kind of gets into the whole Waslowicz, Bevan, and Jackson statement and so forth. But we'll get to that later on.
So, the next thing I think we should have in society is the right to defend yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're going. So right now, because you have part of the First Amendment of the Constitution. What about the other parts of the First Amendment? Do you want to tackle those before we get to the Second Amendment?
Okay, fine. We'll continue.
Yeah. I mean, because this kind of gives us a point of comparison. So there are 5 fundamental freedoms from the First Amendment: speech, assembly, press, religion, and why am I blanking on the last one?
I don't know.
I don't know.
You know better than me.
Fuck me. I can't remember. Anyways, so speech, right? So that is to express what one believes to be true or what one truly believes, right? Now the press, that it's pretty interesting the interpretations of that, right? Because some people say it's if you have a printing press, you can reproduce things. Others take it to mean, and this is like why these little experiments are good, because we can examine the flaws of things like the Constitution for the United States, and the flaw of saying something which was really a colloquialism at the time, the freedom of the press. Because one can interpret that, you can use a printing press, whereas most people interpret that as the right to disseminate information.
I believe people have the right to disseminate information.
Right. Yeah.
I believe people have the right to share whatever information that they want to share.
Right.
Now, there are always consequences to sharing information. Okay? Now, also, I think that the government that we are creating here should be completely transparent in what we're doing. Okay? If we are going to try and hide something, we collectively would have to try and hide it with the community at the same time.
Right.
Because I wouldn't want anybody in the community to say that we were hiding something from them.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a nice idea of having and there are merits to it, right? It's the same thing with like monarchical power and whatnot. But the reality is things like secrecy only empowers a few over the many, right? And if you're trying to create a truly equal society, then you can't, you can't really have that.
Information should not be hidden.
Yeah.
I am of the strong opinion that information should not be hidden, but I don't also believe.
Well,
that,
whose information? That's the question.
Well,
Because you're talking about
public information.
Yeah, public information
Public
versus
information should not be hidden.
the individual.
Okay. I'm also of the opinion that public information should not always necessarily be easily accessible, and I say that because not in a sense that if someone needs to know how to get from point A to point B, or
Right.
needs to know what the laws are. I'm more of talking about the idea of someone expecting someone else to give them the answer to a question readily. Okay, and I think, but that's a much more nuanced topic, and that's more about
Yeah, that's
people
actually
learning
that's gonna be episode 14. We'll talk about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
how people learn.
Yeah.
Okay, so that
I've already got my next few episodes planned out. Greg's got to pick his out.
Perfect.
But so we have speech, press, assembly, right?
I think people should be able to create whatever group they want to. If they want to make the I fucking suck group, then that's fine with me.
Like our podcast, But,
Absolutely.
But I mean, that's one thing that it's really being impinged on right now.
Yes. Only on certain people though.
That's true. It depends on how much money you have. You silly
Or
poors.
what opinion you have.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mostly money, then opinion, and then
I gotta look this up because it's
color
bothering
of
shit out of
skin.
me.
That's the next one after that.
Yeah. Why am I blanking on them?
Because you haven't read this in a while, man.
Yeah, free exercising.
Click the first link under people also ask. Let's see. Speech, religion, press, assembly,
A petition.
and the right to petition.
Yes, the right to petition the government. Hey, this is fucked up, right? But,
Yeah, I'm not certain that's something that I see a lot of people doing. I imagine that people do it at a local level.
well, I mean, that was the whole Trump case with Twitter, really.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it, not the whole thing of it.
But I don't see it happening as much. I think our
Well, no, it's because right now you need to have enough money to petition the government, meaning you have a lobby organization, because that's the only.
that is a consequence of becoming too profitable.
Yeah. Well, what aspect? You're talking about the lobby or the government?
The both. Okay.
Well, because in the government, it's
Well-
it's more of a consequence of the breadth of the reach.
Let me explain my opinion on that.
Okay, go
So, it is both the government is too profitable because we went from being a nation of just people who came over to
Right.
To another side of the world
All right.
with maybe some amount of money and a couple other people who had actual money. Okay, and a lot of people came over with nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Like all my
because
family.
we were such a successful nation, okay, the wealth of the United States is so much more than a number of other countries that the ability to get in what's the terminology
The barrier to entry.
barrier to entry has naturally gone up as the wealth of the nation has grown. Okay, and that is also another consequence of the population growing as much as it has.
Yeah.
So by nature of the fact that you have a lot of people coming in still with nothing,
Right.
if they want to petition the government years after the government was first created,
Right.
the amount of money it cost back then for the average individual to do it is substantially less than it is today.
Right, and then that also gets to the whole idea of what I was saying before: rights, human rights versus citizenship rights.
Sure. Now, with the lobbying aspect of it, that's a whole nother level on top of that. So not only do we not have this barrier of entry from the fact that the nation has grown, and by such, so has the wealth of the nation grown, but because of the wealth of the nation growing, we have created an entire subset of jobs around petitioning the government. So the average individual doesn't even realize that they could petition the government in the same way that a corporation knows that they can petition the
Well,
government.
I mean, I do think that I would have to push back a little bit on that because everybody knows that they can write or call their representative. I mean, that is in form, a form of petitioning the government.
To a degree. I don't think that's what I'm thinking of, though. When I
Yeah,
think of
we're talking about
petition.
like getting up in front of Congress and saying, "Hey, this is fucked up," you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can't imagine the average person, and I know a lot of people who have grievances with how government is run, not only at a state level but at a federal level. So, I myself have grievances that I would like to air to them, but I don't ever see myself being able to get that kind of audience. It's just beyond my current scope of reach.
All right, so let's get on to more so we can, because I'm pretty sure we're going to want to get more stuff in with
Sure.
the time.
So, I believe everyone has the right to defend themselves.
Yeah.
Okay? I believe the way you defend yourself doesn't matter. If you want to defend yourself with a pencil and a stapler, or you want to defend yourself with something more reliable, possibly a sword or a gun or anything else even more reliable than that, you have the right to do that. And if I have the right to do that as a government, then you, the citizen, have the right to do that. And my reasoning behind that is that the government should never be able to have more power in any one area than a citizen individually could have.
Well,
I don't believe a citizen could ever get to the same level that the government could, in most cases.
Yeah, and part of it too is the whole, what was it? Who was it? Payne that said that governments only the amount of basically the amount of power. Well, governments only have power because the people give the governments power. So the extension of that is more that governments only have as much power as the people give them. Which right now people are giving our governments all the power, all the politicians.
But to that degree, I also believe as part of everyone has the right to defend themselves, being allowed to own whatever means of defense that they wish. I also believe that every individual should, if needed be part of the national defense in some capacity.
So I would do it slightly different. I would
Okay.
say I would, because I would say that there are requirements, because I would put requirements rather, because it's like I said, freedom isn't free. The price of freedom is vigilance and tolerance, but its
Yes.
consequence is complacency. So I would say 4 years of either military service or social service.
Sure. I'd be fine with any one of those.
Because not everybody's cut out for the military. I mean, I
Sure.
tried telling my ex-wife to don't go in, and she went in, and she was miserable for 4 years.
There's a number of jobs I've worked that I feel would do everyone a great deal of good, give everyone a greater understanding of the average person if they were to participate.
Right.
And one of the things that I find just horrendous that we have, for some reason, not done anymore. 'Cause
Right.
I know back in the day there were gun clubs in schools and such. I don't understand why we don't have as part of physical education in school. Also, courses to teach people how to use weapons or such properly. And I know we're under the impression that I say this. Let me explain.
No.
I say this with the caveat of I'm not expecting everyone to own weapons or have
No,
weapons or
no.
any of that. But I think personally that at some point in time we went from understanding that the world is a very violent and very hard to survive place.
So here's your participation award.
Yes. And so sometime between the late 1800s to now, people have gotten in their mind that the world is no longer this dangerous, unknowing place. We've somehow discovered everything there is to discover about the world. We've somehow found world peace, which we haven't. We've somehow gotten to a point where everyone can live the most comfortable life of any time and never have to worry about any goddamn thing.
Yeah.
And that's just not true. That is not true at all. If you look at the history books,
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a point when people own guns because once you get outside the cities, it was dangerous. Now people own guns because it's dangerous inside the cities.
it's always been dangerous inside the cities. It's just always been more dangerous outside the cities.
Yeah.
And the
Well, no, I was just saying now that's shifted.
yes,
Right, the whole thing of the highwaymen and whatnot.
I don't necessarily believe that it's still more dangerous. I don't think necessarily.
Well,
it's
because
more dangerous
the
in
difference
cities.
is that highwaymen, right? it's range of communication and so forth, and they're either walking or just traveling on a horse, and that's how the highwayman would be able to get you. That's why people carried guns around and whatnot. Now people are driving; they have cell phones and everything like that. It's harder for somebody outside of a city to get them. So, but usually it's in the inner cities. That's where you have most of the crime, and then most of the violent crime as well.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. By statistics, it's shifted.
Yes.
So going on.
But my point is, I think we should have self-defense courses where we teach people how to properly use means of defense.
Yeah.
Okay? Whatever means of defense they choose to learn,
Yeah.
they should be allowed to learn it, because I think it would give everyone a healthier respect for the dangerous tools that we put in place every day.
I don't know if it would do that, because people still treat cars like they're fucking candy when it's really
Yes,
a 2-ton death
you're
machine.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. People believe that people become too comfortable around cars that they forget how dangerous they are. They get to the point where, oh yeah, that car is speeding at me at 30 miles per hour. I'm on the city street. I just want to get to the other side. He's still coming. I see him. I'm going to run. Bam. So there will be people that will not understand. There will always
You know what?
be
I'm
people
for
who-
this, because Darwinism.
Absolutely.
But
Only the strong will survive.
so another thing I would add is I would have mandatory participation in voting. Now, not necessarily mandatory voting, but participation, because you can vote for somebody, but you also have the right to abstain. Because, and this is one thing, like I was saying, and was the whole crux of my being fed up with society, is that people think it's only these choices, but there's not. There's these other choices. At least go and
Go
say
on.
you know, at least be able, because it's one thing, because we talk about like voter ID laws and all that stuff. That's something that helps out with the voter ID, you know, and making sure everybody's votes accounted for, not counted for more than once, but also people making sure that people get a voice and that people's voice is actually heard, because that abstinence, you know, the abstinence from the vote, just go in and say, no, I'm not voting for anything, go home. You know, that's a legitimate thing to be concerned about, which we only assume now by the numbers of votes that aren't counted.
What I would say is, I think there should be voter ID laws, okay? But I don't believe mandatory voting should be a thing. And if the reason I say that is because I don't want to ever create a law that dictates you have to do something,
Right.
such as really anything like that. By not voting, you have voted to abstain.
Right.
That
But-
is your choice.
But the problem, I mean,
If we create a vote, here's what I would say. Instead of a mandatory voting, okay, I believe that the day of voting should just be a national holiday. And people
Yeah.
can choose if they want to take the time off on that day, or they just want to choose to not. Because I guarantee, even if voting was a national holiday, you would still not get more than 85% participation
yeah.
at most.
Well, the thing is, this is one of those things where it's more of just a preference thing, and for me, it's just my preference. Now, if everybody said that they didn't want that, you know, that's fine. I'm just saying how my preference would be, because there is legitimate arguments for both ways.
I understand that. I don't like the idea of mandating people to do
Right.
something.
Because
I've never liked mandates.
There was what, a city in Brazil where a goat got elected because they were, you know, because they're forced to vote. But you know, but it's just stuff like that is stuff that I want to see happen.
You can still see that happen. We can start right now. The GT. The GOAT Party.
Ah,
We can start it right now. Okay?
should I run for president, Greg?
You're not the GOAT.
I can be the goat.
No, you cannot. I believe we already established that Trump is the GOAT.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But the GOAT is the true GOAT.
Yeah.
As far as voting, other things with regards to voting, United States is interesting because people refer to it as a democracy, but
Yeah, but it's not.
It's not a democracy.
It's a
It's a
republic.
republic. It just so happens that we use somewhat democratic selection electoral process.
Technically, it's a democratic republic because things are voted in by democracy of
Yes.
those that are appointed.
Yes. So here's one of the things that I find a problem with in our current, the current way we have everything.
Is that the people have very little influence on things outside of voting once every couple of years?
Yes, and I think we should have. There should be more consideration to the people for matters that are being considered by the elected officials.
Well, see, this actually ties into. This is actually a reason I didn't say why I want voting to be mandatory is because I want a more direct democracy.
I don't want direct democracy.
I don't want it. No, I'm not saying I want a direct democracy. I'm saying I want a more direct democracy, where things get passed by the politicians, but the people have to approve it as well.
Okay, I am somewhat for that. I think that anything a politician puts forth towards putting into effect, if it wasn't something that he ran on specifically or she ran on specifically,
Well, see, let me interrupt you there because that's the main reason why. Because you get politicians say, "I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this," and they list out this plan. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole thing of campaign promises and bullshit and all that stuff, but it's the whole idea of I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this that people are voting for when people should be able, where you're grouping people's individual issues into, you're lump summing them into one candidate when people have different stances on all these different issues. So by a more direct democracy where people, where politicians write the laws, there's two things about it. One, politicians write the laws. People can actually choose whether they want it to go into effect or not. That gives people more control over their system of government. And two, it's because I'm an asshole and I want to see. I like opening doors for people and watching them pick the worst option possible. Like what happened with California, where they said, "You know what? Fuck you, Uber drivers. You're all getting screwed out of your paychecks," and that's what the people in California voted for.
and they thought they were voting for the opposite. Mm-hmm. So I can somewhat agree on that. I also believe there should be term limits.
Yeah.
There should be term limits equivalent to however many years that we decide are the fair amount of years. Currently, I like the fact that a president serves for no more than 8 years. I could see possibly 12 years, but never more than 12 years.
So let me take it a step further than that, because
Sure.
not just term limits on elected officials, but unelected officials also. Because,
Absolutely.
Because that's where you get like the whole deep state and everything. So
I don't want to see anybody in government who is not a menial
right.
person.
So let me put it this way, because like the military has this thing where if you're at the same rate, the same rank for a certain number of, and you don't progress, then you're out
Okay.
for a certain period of time. But I would do it a little bit different, where the lower rank you are in any government, in any like government institution, I'm forgetting the word, but military organization or government organization, the lower rank you are, the longer you can be there. But as
I
you
disagree with that.
but as you get higher in rank, then you can be there less period of time. So like, if you're the chair, the head of the FBI or whatever, the head of the CIA, you can only serve for a year. That's it. But if you're below that, well, then you have 2 years and so forth.
I disagree with that. What I think is, so let's say you start as a lowly grunt of the organization
Right.
that we call the government.
Right.
You have X number of years in that position
Right.
to advance. If you advance,
Well, yeah.
you now have a new X number of years.
Right. It's the same thing. I'm just saying that
But no, I mean I think the number of years should be about the same.
Yeah, but so the problem with that is that we see even now how like the bad things or the counterproductive things work out, because it is because what is it all about, right? You and I think we both have the same idea of what we want to form out of a government is the prevention of the concentration of power to the few.
Sure.
if you make it the same number of years, you're not doing much. For government organizations, you're not doing much
but
for
it's a
that.
double-edged sword. Okay, so I can see the bad side,
Mm-hmm.
but I also see the good side. And the good side is if I have someone who's in a leadership position
Right.
that's actually doing good,
Right.
I don't want to take them out of the leadership position as soon as
Right.
possible.
Yeah, and that's a legitimate criticism.
So my belief is, that if someone is, we should not believe that someone is bad. There should be much like at a job where there's a strike system, where you have a warning followed by a caution, then a warning, and then you're fired, kind of thing.
Right.
I think the same thing should be with regards to a government position in that regard too. Like if you fuck up
Right.
in any capacity that affects the people at large, you should be given a strike at that point
Well, see, now here's the
and held responsible. And if being held responsible means that you're removed from office, that's what it means.
Now here's the counter to what you're saying about people being there the same number of years, is that people that desire power will chase positions where they can hold that power longer. That's the psychology of why I say to make it smaller and smaller terms as you
But
go
not
into
everyone
higher.
who desires power is necessarily desiring power for an evil reason.
True, but
I'm not going to deny that many people who desire power are usually people who are less than scrupulous.
yeah, but I mean there is the argument that usually the best quote unquote leaders are the ones that get thrust into power and don't chase
Yeah, I've
after
heard
it.
that quote. I like that quote. I see that often, many times. I also see people who get into positions of power purposefully that also do really well and do good things.
Yeah.
Okay? So, my belief is to take the middle road, which is I believe there is some number of people who will be terrible and that we will be able to get rid of them. And there's some number of people who will be good and we will be able to keep them.
All people are terrible. Okay.
We could take a lesser approach where only the highest position or the two highest positions have a lesser amount of time than the lowest
Well, yeah,
positions.
but that's kind of along the lines of what I'm saying.
But I don't want it to be some insignificant amount of time. And when I say that, even though time is sort of a relative,
Yeah.
measurement, I think an 8-year time period is enough time that someone can accomplish something and actually make change to a failing system. Whereas 1 year is not nearly enough time to do something other than possibly fuck up.
Right.
Okay? Because we've seen already with Biden, within 30 days or less, he is already fucked up.
Yeah.
So many ways. Okay? As they say, it takes many years to build something, but only 5 minutes to destroy it.
Yeah.
So, what I would want if we, with all the government, after the voting has occurred, is if something happens where someone in a government position fucks up
Right.
and does something that the populace agrees is egregious,
Right.
we can vote on removing that person
Yeah. Recall votes.
immediately.
Ranked choice voting. There's another one.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of a two-party system. I really don't like the idea. I would rather a three-party system.
I defer to my rant at the very first episode.
Okay.
All right, we're running a little low on time here. Let's try and get like one more in, and then
Sure.
what other?
What's the next most important thing to you? So we've gotten the ability to speak and self-defense. and
Well, I
voting.
mean, there are a lot of the things that are in our Constitution, fair treatment, equal protection of the law,
rights.
rights
You wanna
to
do rights?
yeah, rights to like water and food if you can't provide them for yourself, like if you're incarcerated or whatnot.
Why don't we talk about trying to encompass a bunch of things under one umbrella term. Poverty.
Poverty.
Okay. If you are below the poverty line,
Right.
you should be allowed to go to any medical facility or any supermarket of sorts
So Okay, I'll let you finish your idea.
Basically, if you're under the poverty line and you do not have necessarily the cash, you would not be denied resources, so that way you could continue to live.
Right, basically what I was saying. If you can't provide for yourself, the things would be provided, which again is another double-edged sword.
But here's what I would put on to that.
Right.
Okay, because I'm always of the firm belief that it is incumbent upon an individual, if you're going to give another individual free resources,
Right.
you do not want that person to become reliant upon those resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
So should someone fall below the poverty line, okay, even if they're still have a cash inflow, that person should have to.
It's
a
basically
mandate at that point. But
so
it's-
basically what you're kind of putting is kind of like the idea of what FDR did was giving government jobs, which is
well, I don't think government jobs is the solution.
well, I mean that gets into like UBI and automation and all that kind of stuff, and
I
that's
don't think UBI is the solution either.
well,
What I'm saying is,
that's a whole conversation for another. But I'm just talking about the general idea of there being a way that you can earn something to provide for yourself in a situation where you can't normally find that.
I think there should be some sort of tax. No, tax is the wrong word, but there should be some sort of program that you would have to, in order to get the benefits that the
Right.
government is going to give you.
Right.
Okay, so if you're under the poverty line, you could choose to ignore the government and not take any of the free handouts.
Right.
If you do decide, I want these free handouts,
Right.
where if I'm in a situation that I don't have the resources for, you'll be able to help me out with that. There should be a class that someone should have to take, so that way they can
You've been
learn
listening to my
better
ideas.
themselves.
You've been listening to my ideas because one of the things I suggested a while ago is not so much a UBI, but again, government job where your job is to be educated, is to attend classes and learn. That is your job. That's what you get paid to do. You get paid to learn so that one day you can
Contribute to society.
exactly. I mean, it's just an extension of what we have now with the public school system. Although the public school system is another conversation and so forth.
And something interesting to
I mean,
me.
basically, it's the same thing, just different
Sure.
terminology.
Something interesting to me, and I don't know much about this subject.
Right.
Maybe you know a little bit more about it, but does the government have farmers?
The
Or
government
does the
subsidizes
government-
farmers.
Okay. Since the government subsidizes farmers, I think the government should just have farmers. And I say that from a standpoint of the government should have, because the government owns so much land that they probably don't even use most of the time.
Well, yeah, a lot of it's for nature preserves and whatnot.
Well, I think one of the nature preserves should be a farm preserve, or something of that nature, where they grow some number of tons of food that is only used for the purpose of feeding the poor,
Yeah.
specifically the homeless. Okay,
Yeah,
because
interesting idea.
one of the biggest things I've seen is that we have a homelessness problem of craziness,
Yeah, thanks to all the banks and what's going on now.
and we don't
Inflation.
We don't do anything to help these people.
No,
but
why should we help
go
other
out of
people?
our way
To demonize them.
to demonize them, for one.
Mm-hmm.
Two, we pay the people who aren't even homeless in our country to come to our country to take the money away from people who
Yeah.
are homeless that could use jobs.
It's all fucking stupid. Yeah, well, this will definitely be a topic that we're going to have to
Let's
continue
continue.
on some point, and we're going to have to wrap up the show there. What do you say, Greg?
Well, once again, I am Greg.
And I am Charles.
Remember to never question,
Never ask for proof,
and always believe what you're told by the news and the politicians.
no matter what. Now, oh wait, I didn't set this up. I'm bad.
Oh no!
I'm horrible. Go back to sleep, fuckers.